Just as equilibrium will change if there is a change in demand, in the same way equilibrium can change if there is a change in supply. And so there are two ways in which this can happen. Supply can increase or supply can decrease. So as before, we are starting at an original equilibrium. This is your original supply curve. This is your demand curve. Price, quantity, original price, original quantity in equilibrium. Now let us say something happens that makes supply increase. Right? So let us say there is a technological innovation that makes labor much more productive, making it cheaper to produce. And when that happens, producers find that costs are going down, it's cheaper to produce. So at each price, they can supply more. Right? So here we are. Remember now, an increase in supply is an outward shift. If you forget about the flipped axis, you're going to think this is a decrease. Just keep remembering, increase in supply is an outward shift. All right? So when supply increases, what we find is that at the original price, consumers are still asking for Q1. Demand is at Q1. But suppliers have expanded their supply up to Q2. So now supply exceeds demand, and then excess supply opens up at the original equilibrium price. And now we know what happens. Since there was an excess supply at the original equilibrium price, price competition among producers means they'll keep dropping the price. As they do that, quantity demanded will increase along that demand curve, like this. Quantity supplied will decrease along the new supply curve, like that. And this process will continue until we will reach a new equilibrium, P star, Q star, where price is lower than it used to be and quantity is more than it used to be. So this is what I mean when I say that as supply increases, prices will drop and quantities will increase. I'm really talking about equilibrium to equilibrium changes. Again, remember there are no feedback loops, and this is only a story in a single market, assuming everything else works out. Just as we can have an increase in supply, we can also have a decrease in supply. So now let's do this and see how it works. We have our original supply and demand curves. I've got my original equilibrium at P1. I've got my original equilibrium at Q1. And now something happens. Let us say that because of heat waves and fires, there has been a sort of loss of agricultural arable land. And so there has been a shortage in food production. Right? So the change in the climate has resulted in a shortage, increasing input costs of raw materials, and that therefore means it's becoming more and more expensive for producers to access their inputs, and costs are going up. So at each price, they will supply less. So in this case, the supply curve shifts in to this new supply curve in pink. Notice again, remember that this is a decrease in supply. It's an inward shift. Remember the flipped axis. Don't make the mistake of thinking that this is upward or increase. This is inward decrease in supply, right? So now that we have a decrease in supply, we can figure out what's going on. Consumers are still consuming Q1, but the producers have cut back along the new supply curve. They are supplying Q2, which means quantity supplied is less than quantity demanded, and we have an excess demand. at the original price. And now we know what happens. When you've got an excess demand, we know that price competition among producers will start nudging the prices up, and as prices go up, on the consumer side, price increases will mean that they start cutting back quantity demanded along their demand curve. On the producer side, that increase in price will start nudging up their quantity supplied along this new supply curve. And this process will continue until we reach a new equilibrium at P star Q star. And if you look at this, compared to the original equilibrium price, the new equilibrium price is higher. And compared to the original equilibrium quantity, the new equilibrium quantity is lower. So this is what we mean when we say that when supply declines, prices will increase and quantities will decrease. Again, we're talking about equilibrium to equilibrium shifts, and we're talking about partial equilibrium in a single market. So these four cases define the four cases that you will get in exams from me, and which define four different ways in which market equilibrium can change in response to whether it's demand side change or a supply side change.